Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to another interesting episode of the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today I am incredibly excited to be joined by a very special guest, Madhu Das, a holistic health and business lifestyle coach with a truly unique journey. Madhu spent 5 years as a monk immersed in the Bhakti Yoga tradition, where he studied Vedic arts and sciences under renowned teachers across the world. He's now dedicated to helping health and wellness professionals, coaches, and influencers create thriving, sustainable businesses, all while maintaining a deep connection to the ancient spiritual practices. In today's conversation, we'll be exploring healing mind, body, and soul with ancient tools and practices. And we'll also see how Madhu is passionate about making these timeless wisdoms accessible and relevant to everyone while also preserving their authenticity. Whether you are looking to find that balance in your personal life, improve your well being, or even grow your business, today's conversation will be full of actionable insights. So let's get ready and dive in. So, Madhu, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor to have you with us today.
Oh, the honor is mine. It's such a beautiful service to keep a podcast like this going, and especially the topics and content that you share are just so uniquely helpful. So I'm so excited to have a conversation today that will be, as you mentioned, full of tools and practical things that we can take away.
Lovely, lovely. So, Madhu, you have had such a fascinating journey from living as a monk, now becoming a successful coach. So, if you can start by telling us how ancient tools and practices from your time in the monastery influenced your approach to holistic healing.
Absolutely. Well, I'd say the main word that comes through is service, or in Sanskrit, or in the tradition that I learned from when I was living in India as a monk. The term is Seva. It literally means to serve or to contribute. And really, living as a monk for the half a decade that I did, the primary focus is how do I take my unique gifts in nature and psychophysical makeup, and how do I use that in a way as to contribute to other people's lives, or as to generously give and contribute in the same way our teachers have, well, say, help me. And so this mood of service that was so present while living the monastic lifestyle has carried through, and it's still the focal point in terms of how do I make anyone whose life I get in contact with, how do I improve their quality of life, even if it's just by a modicum.
Wow, that's beautiful. So many people today, they feel overwhelmed and disconnected from themselves. I believe most of us all. So particularly in the fast-paced world we live in. So how can the ancient practices you teach help them reconnect with their mind, body, and soul?
Well, I think it's first important to define these terms, because this is such an essential question for living what I would call a complete life, or a fulfilled or content life, is having these three in alignment. And I think that the most practical way for us to define these terms is we have our physical body, which is undeniable. We have our subtle body, which we might call our We call it our mind. Really, it's our emotions and our discerning ability. And then we have our, let's just say, our spirituality or our spirit. It's the real us, the unit of consciousness that goes beyond the physical body and the subtle mind. And just as we could see that we are not the body, rather we have a body. And if I lose an arm, I'm no less of a person, because even though, say, the arm is gone, or even though every cell of my body is changing every 7 years, I am still the same, the person that's within that body. Or same thing with the mind, is I could witness the mind changing, and therefore I know I'm not the mind. I have a mind, and I can witness the body change. Therefore, I know I have a body. And then the spirit is what goes beyond that. That's the real you driving, say, the vehicle of the body and the mind. So having those terms clarified, we can now look at how do I bring them into integrity or into alignment, which is such a fun word. Everyone throws this term out: alignment, integrity. And really what we're talking about is how to make sure that those three areas, the physical body, the subtle mind, and the spirit, are in alignment. What that actually would look like is that the purpose of those three are moving in the same direction. And so what that means, what we do with our mind and our thoughts, what we do with our body, and what we do ultimately, you could say, the real us, the soul, what we do for our ultimate purpose, those all must be moving in the same direction. And this alludes to my first point, which is service. We'll find that people who have the most in this world, what do they do in their free time? Philanthropic acts. They go serve. They'll go give charitable donations. They'll go serve food on the side of the street, or whatever the case might be. And it's because you can have everything in the world, but you're never going to find satisfaction in taking. You're only going to find satisfaction in contribution and giving. And so what I would say is having, number one, a clear idea of what these three are: our physical body, our mind, and our soul, which goes beyond them. And then working within our nature, with our psychophysical nature, in a way as to contribute and serve those with our gifts. That is one, let's just say that's the foundation for starting to live with those three aspects in harmony.
That is very profound. So, Madhu, what motivated you or attracted you to this world of ancient wisdom and tools to, align our mind, body, and soul?
I've always been curious about, let's just say, these esoteric topics, but really what inspired me to go in the direction of being a monk, and, well, I should say even more specifically, studying the Bhakti Yoga tradition, which comes from the ancient Vedas. For those of you not familiar, Veda literally is a term in Sanskrit that means knowledge, and they're the ancient wisdom literatures from the East that come from India and the reverberating modern countries of India. And the amazing aspect of these Vedas, or these ancient wisdom literatures, is not only have they been around for at least a few thousand years, we know we can verifiably see they've been around at least a few thousand years, making them the oldest philosophical works in the world. But they've been practiced by many millions, if not billions, of people over the span of those years. And there's a way in which, when something is tested, let's say it's proven over time, when you have millions, if not hundreds of millions of people who can claim to the efficacy of a practice, of a protocol, of a execution of a particular subset of knowledge, right off the bat, that it's worth looking into. And so when I was comparing that to other, say, philosophical and theological literatures around the world, not only did it seem to be a worthwhile investment of my time to explore, but once I actually started to explore it and started to feel the difference myself, that's really where we could say the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. That's where, when I tasted it myself, I went, okay, there's something magical in this. And after all these years, I could say probably the best decision I've ever made in my life. No, I'm going to go big. Certainly the best decision I've ever made in my life was studying these ancient literatures.
Lovely, lovely. That's really lovely and so inspiring, Madhu. In your experience, what common misconceptions do people have about this entire concept of ancient healing practices, and how do you help overcoming or addressing these misconceptions to embrace the tools fully?
Yeah, there's a handful of what I would call common misconceptions, specifically in, let's just say, the holistic healing realm. What that really means is sciences that don't necessarily have, say, published data behind them, even though nowadays we have a lot of data that does support ancient practices, things that people have been doing for many thousands of years. I think the number one is people will say, oh, where's the evidence to the efficacy of this. And especially when you start talking about more subtle practices of understanding, let's just say, the initial steps of disease even before it gets manifest in the body. There's many practices from Ayurveda to traditional Chinese medicine and many others that will allude to there's ways to catch an illness before it even manifests as an illness. So one might look at those and say, what's the evidence to it? Because if I cannot empirically see and understand, then how do I know it to be true? I think it's imperative to acknowledge that there's multiple types of evidences, and the empirical proof is helpful when it can be there. However, it's limited because the mind and the eyes are limited. You can't even see the closest thing to the eyes, and that's the eyelids. So what to speak of trying to just judge everything that we see in our life off of what we can perceive, what can be empirically tested. I think right off the bat, that's a strong indication of a shortcoming. And there must be other ways of observing evidences, things that are going to indicate if something is or isn't working. So number one is looking beyond just empiricism. Now, don't reject empiricism, but look beyond it. Number two, once you have, say, that axiom addressed, the next area, or let's say the next most common area of misunderstanding, and really I might call it miscommunication, is that people might say that worked a few thousand years ago, but what about today with the modern times? There's diseases available now that weren't there, say, 5,000 years ago when the Ayurveda Shastra or the teachings of, say, these holistic sciences from India came about. I think it's just a misunderstanding of what the protocol is. And that is that a lot of these ancient traditions of healing teach things that are, things, I don't love that word. They teach principles that are going to be relevant to different times and different circumstances. And therefore, it's not a one size fits all like in the West, where we have, okay, I have this headache, I take this medicine. It's not so simple in the fact of I have one issue, then I take one medicine. Rather, it teaches principles of how to bring the body into balance. So one might say, it was relevant then, and might work, but it's not relevant today. But that is simply a misunderstanding of what's available within the knowledge itself. And one example might be when you understand, say, how the digestion works. You could see how there's various ways to improve the digestion and the metabolism and the microbiome. And it's not a one size fits all. And then I would say the third most common misconception is the, let's say, practical application. They say, I might have tried it once, or I talked to one person, but it didn't seem to work for me. But rather, it's a nuanced science that takes a lot of finesse. And therefore, to the extent that we can try on this knowledge from different approaches, different mediums, and really that means different practitioners, will to that extent be able to experience, let's just say, more opportunities to access this knowledge. Because if we just try it one time, it could be a limit on the practitioner itself. It could be a limit in the particular time, or your body was in a particularly unreceptive situation, or whatever the case might be. So those are, say, three of the most common misconceptions I see dealt with in this space.
Oh, that absolutely makes sense. Great. So moving on to Vedic sciences. So you have trained extensively in this area. So could you share about the specific tools or practices from Vedic sciences that you have found most effective in promoting healing and balance?
Absolutely. So what I would say is the number one most effective tool that anyone could implement immediately, like get benefits from today, is going to be meditation, which a lot of people hear that word. A lot of people have tried it. Some people even do it. Maybe a smaller subset of those who've heard the term try it. And the misconception that comes along with meditation is, it's too hard. I can't empty my mind, whatever the case might be. I would say first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that there are ways to properly meditate according to different natures, different mindsets. And finding a meditation that will actually help us control the mind, so the mind doesn't control us, is imperative. And so with the, say, foundational tool of meditation, the next question is, what meditation or meditations can I do today to start seeing some benefits of? And there are some that are going to be undeniably helpful in terms of some, like, say, breath work, which if you do breath work properly, you are forcing your physiology and then inevitably your psychology to move in a particular direction. An example might be some breath works where you focus on long durations of exhales, which slow down your heart rate and slow down you. Or let's just say they relax you, to oversimplify the concept. Those long exhalation practices of breath work are going to relax you. Similarly, exercises around breath where you are focused on the inhale or longer inhales or more exaggerated inhales are going to bring more alertness, more focus. So there are meditations, let's say breathwork meditations that one can do, which you'll physically and psychologically feel the difference of. What I would say even beyond those, which is a good step for anyone who's never done any meditation, just sit down, even just becoming aware of your breath, what to speak of, say, modulating or modifying the breath according to your needs. If you need a little energy, focus on the inhales. If you need some more relaxation, focus on the exhales. Beyond that is going to be meditations on helping us perceive the real us. What that means is, what can I do to acknowledge that I am beyond this body and beyond this mind, that I'm something divine. I'm the soul, the spark of consciousness within that's watching the body and watching the mind change. Once we understand that, say, axiom that I have a body, I have a mind, but I'm something divine. The question is, what are the meditations I can do to sit with that real self, to sit with, let's just say, my real self, and not be captured by the mind and by the body. And the most effective meditation practice that I've ever heard of from this is called japa, J-A-P-A. It's an ancient practice where we chant mantras. Mantra literally means, man means mind, and tra means to deliver or to free. There's sound vibrations that free the mind or deliver the mind. There's these mantras that we could chant over and over where we focus our attention on the sound vibration of chanting the mantra and actually hearing the mantra go in the ear, which captures the attention, because sound carries consciousness. That's why if somebody hears a ambulance drive by right now, no matter how much they try to listen to us, their attention's going to be strayed to the ambulance, because sound carries consciousness. So similarly, if we start to chant mantras that free the mind, and then we're hearing those same mantras as we chant them, not only is that going to be one of the easiest ways to meditate, but it's going to be ultimately the most effective, because what they do is they help us supersede, say, the urges of the mind, the urges of the body, and actually sit with the self.
Wow, that is very profound. Beautiful. So, how do you think or we can, or maybe especially ones who are into busy modern lifestyle and they have demanding careers, how they can integrate these spiritual practices into their daily lives?
I think the most effective way for anyone, as busy or not, to start to practice, say, these ancient practices, these spiritual practices, these tools that are going to make your life a little bit easier, is number one, association or community. You are the people you spend time with. I mean, it's even scientifically proven that if you look at the 5 people you spend the most time with, you're going to notice your habits, your communication style. Everything is going to start to mold like them. And there's the age-old saying, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. The people we associate with are the people we become like. And therefore, the most effective way to start to integrate any practice, what to speak of spiritual transformative practices, is to be around those who are already doing it. Even if they're just one step ahead of us, what to speak of 100 steps ahead of us, is to surround ourselves by them. Just like if you want to become great at any martial arts, better that you spend time with those who are way better at you than martial arts or any discipline or any practice. So that's going to be step number one, because doing it on our own and just depending on our own discipline is going to be very difficult. There's always going to be a ceiling for that. There's going to be days I don't feel like it and I have to just push myself through, but there's only so many days we could just push ourselves through. Rather, as we need some backbone, some association to keep us strong. And the second step is, what are those practices that I can do easily every single day that only take 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, and starting to implement those types of exercises into our life, the ones that are quick and easy, and starting from there, and never increase until you have consistency, because drops a day wear the stone away. And our job is to just find something we can do every single day. And once it becomes part of our lifestyle, then we can start to go from 1 minute to 5, and from 5 to 20. And in this way, start to increase them. So I would say, number one, association, be around people doing the thing that you want. And number two, find something that you can commit to doing every day that feels so easy that you know you won't go to bed until you've done that simple practice.
Wow, lovely. That's lovely. Okay, so you, in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned the transformative power of community during your time as a monk the power of Seva. So, how important is community support in the healing process, and how can individuals cultivate supportive networks in their own lives?
I would say that association isn't even important. It is essential. Community is essential for growth because we're social mammals. So even biologically, if you try to become, say, a lone wolf, good luck. Even some people whose natures are a little bit more isolated, even they start to go crazy with too much isolation. We are not biologically meant to be alone. So the most effective way to grow is going to be in association or in community. Find people doing the thing that you want to do, surrounding yourself by them and getting good at, or let's just say developing the art at putting yourself in the right circles or in the right communities, because we're naturally going to be inclined towards different communities. And if we're not very diligent, we might find ourselves in a community that's not going to be empowering. It might be very disempowering. And so our job is to develop the art of finding circles that we want to be in and figure out how to get into that circle. How do I find people who are the best at what they do, specifically things I want to become great at, and put myself in that circle? That is the art that will get anyone what they want efficiently.
Okay, so music has played a significant role in your life as a professional musician and a monk. So, how do you see this beautiful connection between music and healing? And how can people use music as a tool for emotional and spiritual well being?
The cool thing with music is it's a language that everyone speaks to a certain degree. And what that means is even if people don't know, say, music theory or don't know what's happening, everyone likes music. There's no person in the world who's like, I don't like music. That would be a very big, scary problem if somebody said that. Create some space from that person, because every single person in this world likes music. The type of music, that's obviously detail, and that depends on our culture and our conditioning. But music is a language that communicates beyond just words. And there's a way in which you can even listen to a song in another language, even if you don't understand the words, but it can still provide an emotional response. And so one thing I've always loved about music in general is not only does it provide it a healthy emotional and creative release for anyone who wants to get creative within music, but it also creates an opportunity to connect on a level that's deeper than, say, just the thinking process, or deeper than just what you can communicate with words. This is why I was so inclined towards my favorite meditation in the world is called kirtan meditation, which literally means call and response chanting of mantras. These different mantras that you have one person will chant it with a melodical instrument while there's some rhythmic drumming going on, and then everyone responds to the mantra, and it goes back and forth because the mind responds well to music. And therefore, if we can start to combine, say, divine sounds like mantras with music, it allows the mantra to go deeper than if I was just sitting here and chanting it all on my own. And that's really what inspired me so much in the direction of bhakti yoga, which teaches as its primary principle is the way that we can achieve our potential and connect divinely is through chanting these divine mantras, especially in kirtan or in musical format.
Wow. Great, great. So, Madhu, before we wrap up, as you guide your clients in navigating their lives, what advice do you give them for maintaining their practices in the face of challenges or setbacks? How can they stay committed to their journey of healing and growth?
The way that one can stay committed, especially if they're facing hard times or they're dealing with challenges that are crippling them or that are just feel so difficult to move forward. Not only do we want to focus on association, because again, you are like the people you spend the most time with, so getting a good association, but even more than that is, I have a phrase I like to use, and it's gotta get a guru. You got to get a guru. You got to find somebody who has done the thing that you want and who has gone through the trials and tribulations that you are going through and probably will go through, that can help you individually overcome them. Just like if you're dealing with a particular disease, you have to find a doctor who's expert in getting you past that particular health challenge. So in the same way, this mantra, I encourage everyone to say it until it manifests. It's got to get a guru. You got to get a guru. You got to find somebody who can get you past those hard times and equip you with the strength. And even when you can't do it, you got somebody to call and say, help. And they know how to expertly diagnose the challenge and figure out what is going to be a next step in the right direction for you.
Absolutely right. Lovely, lovely, Madhu. So, this was indeed a very, very inspiring conversation. So, if our listeners want to connect with you and explore how you are leveraging the ancient tools, wisdom, and practices to help everyone align their mind, body, and soul, how they can do that.
Yeah, the best way to do it is we have a free community, which is for doing just this, where we give all of our content for free for anyone who wants to improve their quality of life and connect with other like-minded individuals. And this community, if you guys go to our website, which is madhu.life, madhu.life, or if you find us on any social media platform at the same thing, madhu.life, or any platform, if you look at madhu.life, you'll be able to find us. And if you send me the word, well, actually, instead of just giving you guys something general, I want to give you guys something special. Anyone who comes from this particular podcast, if you guys send me the word, why don't we go with mindful? Let's go with the word mindful. If anyone sends me the word mindful, I will not only give you direct access to our community with all of our free resources, but I'll also send you, we have a particular breakdown, which is called the monk mindset method, how one can live in this world without becoming affected by the world around us. And so just make sure you send me the word mindful so I know it came from you guys, and I'll throw in that little extra gift.
Lovely, lovely. We'll have all the details mentioned in there for our listeners. And Madhu, thank you so much for sharing your incredible wisdom with all of us today. It is really inspiring to hear how ancient tools and practices can be integrated into our modern lives to bring balance, harmony, healing, and purpose, which is much needed right now. So, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for creating such a beautiful space for us to have these conversations.
And for our listeners, I encourage you to explore these timeless methods and begin incorporating them into your daily life. And you can connect with Madhu using the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform on insights and resources on living a truly holistic life. And thank you to everyone for joining us on the Mindful Living podcast. And until next time, stay mindful and connected. Thank you.